Thank you.
And he's a fellow Rotarian.
I'm with Gwinnett Rotary. And I have to introduce my lovely wife, Karen. She's the president of Secure Maid, in case any of you need a maid service, but she supports Care for Cops. You wonder why. I guess first thing I'd like to tell you is that I really enjoy talking to Rotarians. Now, most of my talks are to law enforcement folks, and I'm usually doing some kind of training. So this is a little different. About a year and a half ago, I kind of semi-retired. I sold 2 big divisions, and it gave me some extra time. So we decided that we were going to start taking this program to different organizations, and we figured, you know what, the best one to start with would be a Rotary group. You know, Rotarians are basically made up of 3 different groups. You got the young Rotarians that are always wanting to do something, because we all want to make a difference. Somehow, we all want to make a difference. So they work, and they want to make a difference, so they'll go out and they'll do whatever you ask them. Then you've got the Rotarians that, they used to do a lot of stuff, and they're still doing some small things, and they like to help because they still want to make a difference. And then, like in my club, which is probably about 100, you've got some of the older Rotarians that, we already made a difference. But they're all committed. If nothing else, they're committed to coming every week, to spending their money, to giving Rotary money to do things like single-handedly eliminating polio and all the other things that Rotarians do. So in 1999, well, let's see if we can get this slide presentation working. Tell you what, before we even get going, I want you to all just look at a video, and then we'll go into the presentation. This is a brand new video that I got during a training session. And one of the fellows that was doing the training was a retired FBI agent. And that's our board. We have a few chiefs, police chiefs, the public safety director for Beaufort, and we've got a pretty heavy-hitting board. Can we do while we're looking for it? You know, I have a theory about computers. They're like wild dogs. They sense your fear and then they turn on you. But in 1999, I was a member of the Metropolitan Atlanta Crime Commission. There were police chiefs and a lot of high-ranking law enforcement officials and public officials who were part of that group. And one day, someone said, "You know what? We need to do something for law enforcement. There are too many officers in the state of Georgia are getting killed." So one of the females there, leave it to a woman to come up with a good idea, but we don't want to admit that all the time. She said, "You know what? We need to start a program to help families of law enforcement officers in Georgia that get killed in the line of duty." And someone said, "How about a motorcycle ride?" And then everybody looked at me. I've been riding since I was 13 years old, riding police motorcycles and everything else. So they asked me if I would head that up. And of course I did. And if you looked at our logo,
A new documentary film is going to change the way you see law.
let's look at this and then I'll continue.
Washington, D.C., our nation's great capital. It's a historic city known for housing our federal government and providing a home for our presidents. But for millions of people, it's become a place of pilgrimage to honor our national heroes. There are monuments to past presidents, and in Arlington, a cemetery for our lost but not forgotten soldiers. But there's only one place where new names are added to be remembered every year. It's the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. Now, to honor the fallen, special access has been granted to reveal some of the stories of the past year's bravest and most courageous officers.
shot. At that point, I really couldn't breathe very well. I had trouble keeping my balance. The shots are going off, bang, 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 bang. Suddenly I look over to my left and I see an officer laying on the ground. He's laying on his stomach. And I didn't see the officer get shot, but I knew how he was laying that he was dead. And I knew for sure that he was dead because he wasn't moving and he was laying face down, and that officer ended up being Craig Ruckles.
You realize that there's a danger. You're aware of that. But I don't think until this happened to Suzanne that I was aware as much how they face that every day. They never know when it's going to happen.
Jeremy's death struck every officer throughout the country. Every one of us felt that vulnerability, because that could have been, and it still could be, any one of us. He was shot not because he was Jeremy Henwood, he was shot because he was a police officer in a marked police car.
Today, in many armed conflicts, officers are simply outgunned.
Brandon died right here. Bill actually died in that ditch right there.
I saw that Brandon lying on his back had been shot several times, and he was facing up. And I walked up to him, I stood over him, looking down at him. And my entire life just drained out of my body at that point. It was the worst day of my life. I was looking down at my son that had just been shot. And I was standing there trying to decide what I needed to do, and what I needed to do as a police chief, and what I needed to do as a father.
While the tragedy was being felt by those at the scene, the killers were engaged in a nearby gun battle.
When I started into the parking lot, the gunfire started. I immediately transitioned the rifle up into the windshield and started towards them. The bullets started coming through the windshield. They shot this pillar out completely. Some of the rounds were coming over my head. My headrest had a bullet hole in it. I had laid across the console and was returning fire pretty much from the passenger seat. And in the picture, you can see the bullet holes stair-stepping coming across to the point he found where I was inside the truck. And that's where he concentrated his fire at that point. And I was doing the same thing to him. Luckily, I was able to get to him before he got to me.
The fact of the matter is many officers are being outdone by the criminals they're having to go up against. And we don't necessarily have the money today to buy our officers better weaponry so that they can match the firepower that they're having to deal with on the streets of America.
And then every funeral you go to, it's heart-wrenching to see the wives and the widows and the children and just the families of good people, that have to suffer because we still have scumbags out on the streets and our system fails us each and every day.
At that time, I was really sad. You know, I was angry. Kind of that she went in first, in a way. And she always wanted to be the hero, you know. And she was the hero, but she, you know, cost her her life, which really sucks. So I was kind of mad about that, but then I thought about it and I understand that, you know, that's how she was, that's who she was. So.
They were there, they knew they were dealing with a dangerous person, but they had to do what they had to do. And not too many people have the courage or the personality to be able to do this job. And I don't think you can put a price tag on that.
To stand at the head of a dark alleyway, knowing that there is danger in that alleyway somewhere, and actually go do it. It's phenomenal. Of course it's courageous. Of course it's dedication. And of course they think about everything that they could lose.
Every day, thousands of law enforcement officers across America leave their homes, not knowing if they will return. One of them will be killed in the line of duty every 54 hours.
I have a hard time. I have a hard time watching that. I go to almost every law enforcement officer's funeral in the state of Georgia, and it takes a toll. But you understand what's going on when you do that, and you see the faces of the families and the kids and all the law enforcement people that are there in support.